Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Welcome back, everyone, to lecture 10. We're making good progress in the poem of Al-Rahabiyya. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about the next two sections, which is the section of universal male inheritors, or as we discussed in the Matn of Abi Shuja', they're called agnate inheritors, meaning they're related through the male line. Sorry, I just want to confirm that. Yes. Al-asabat. And this will be lines 73 to 83. So 10 lines on that. And then the next section, we're going to talk about the hijab part, or the hujub, who blocks who, whether it be partially or completely. Or in the Matn of Abi Shuja', they're called omissions, and that will be from verse 84 to verse 96. So those are the main sections that we're going to talk about in today's class. This is going to be much more, I think, straightforward than the previous discussion of the 1/6. The 1/6 tends to be the most difficult part because it is people whose shares have been basically altered. So what I want to do in the beginning of the class, I'm just going to give a very quick, maybe 1 minute or 2 minute overview of what we did in the last lecture on the 1/6, and then we're going to go forward on the two sections for today, the universal inheritors and the omissions. There is some adillah that we're going to go through, particularly in the first section. Not that much, but there is some adillah. And there is a nice way sometimes of enumerating different classes of people that will be kind of a new, it's the same information, but as we go through the commentary, it might be, I'll try to point those out when I can, because it will be, I think, easier, at least for me, to keep things in the mind, and there should be copious examples. So this should be a pretty straightforward lecture, inshallah, with the caveat that I'll just try to backtrack a little bit in the beginning. So let's begin the discussion, inshallah, in the next clip. All right, so before we do the new material, I want to take just a quick step back on the 1/6 stuff. And I'm going to do it in the following way. These are lines 51 to 72. So part of the problem is that there's about, a little over 21 lines of poetry, which was a lot. So what I want to do is maybe I can give you the chunks, and maybe if you want on your notes, you can make it the following notes. Line 51 and 52 is simply a restatement of the 7 categories or the 7 types of people that inherit the 1/6. And then the next chunk is line 53 to 55. Actually, let me get them in front of me. 53 to 55, which talks about the issue of the father. And then line 56 to 60 is the next chunk that talks about the grandfather, keeping in mind that we have those 2 scenarios that we talked about. And then lines 61 to 62 talks about the daughter of the son. And then line 63 to 64 talks about a half sister from the father. And then the next set of lines, 63 to 64, we talk about the grandmother. 65 to 66 is the next section. We talk about them being of equal degree. And then 67 to 69, grandmothers with the difference of opinion that we mentioned in the madhab. And then the final lines of the section 70 to 72, continuing the discussion of the difference of opinion. So if you look at it that way, maybe that will make it a little bit easier. You can kind of make the themes of the categories, of the lines of poetry. Okay, now let's go for today at Ta'sib, the universal inheritors. I'm going to read a few at a time, I think. So I'm going to read 73 to 75. قال المصنف رحمه الله ونفعنا بعلومه في الدارين آمين. وحق أن تشرع في التعصيب بكل قول موجز مصيب فكل من أحرز كل المال من القرابات أو الموالي أو كان ما يفضل بعد الفرض له فهو أخو العصوبة المفضلة. So line 73, وحق أن تشرع في التعصيب, and it is just that we begin in the law of universal heirs. I'm just maintaining the translation from the Matn of Abi Shuja. So universal heirs because they're people that always are going to inherit. بكل قول موجز مصيب, with every sentence concise and exact. Line 74, فكل من أحرز كل المال. Now everyone who appropriates all of the estate من القرابات أو الموالي, amongst the near descendants or relations, أو كان ما يفضل بعد الفرض له, or who takes what remains after portions are distributed, فهو أخو العصوبة المفضلة. He is distinguished by the title of a universal heir. So here in the first three lines, the first 3 lines, 73 to 75, we have basically a definition of what it means to be a universal heir. The universal heir is the person, usually a man, but there is one exception. There is one woman who is, as we will see at the very end, the woman who frees a slave. It's actually in the line of poetry. So it wouldn't be fair to say they're all male heirs, but because we don't have any slavery anymore, for all intents and purposes, they are men, they're all male heirs. So that's also correct. We don't have to fight over that. These are the people that are going to take what's left. And or they will be the people that can partially or completely block other people from inheriting. Now, why does this in the poem, why does it come later than the shares? That's also important because the Prophet ﷺ says, and this is a hadith that's narrated in Bukhari as well as Muslim, الحق الفرائض بأهلها. Make sure that the estate and the shares of the estate, of the inheritance, go to the rightful heirs, meaning the shares. فما بقي, what is left, فالأولى رجل ذكر, what is left, the closest male universal heir. So in the phraseology of the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ indicated that we're going to find the shares first, and then what's left goes to the universal shares. So that's why usually when we discuss it, one comes over the other. Now, obviously, if the universal heirs by themselves, they're going to take everything. If the universal heirs with other inheritors, they're going to take a portion of it, and that's why it's worded the way it is. That's pretty straightforward. 76 to 78. كالأب والجد وجد الجد والابن عند قربه والبعد والأخ وابن الأخ والأعمام وسيد المعتق ذي الإنعام وهكذا بنوهم جميعا فكن لما أذكره سميعا. So line 76, كالأب والجد وجد الجد, as the father, these are examples now, the grandfather and the great-grandfather all the way up, if they exist, وَالِبْنُ عَنْدَ قُرْبِهِ وَالْبُعْدِ, and the son in a near or remote degree, meaning a son, a grandson, a great-grandson, etc. وَالْأَخُ وَابْنِ الْأَخِ وَالْأَعْمَامِ, and the brother and the brother's son and the uncles, وَسَيِّدِ الْمُعْتِقِ ذِي الْإِنْعَامِ, and the master who generously manumitted his slave. And then later we'll know that the woman that also. وَهَكَذَا بَنُوهُمْ جَمِيعًا فَكُنْ لِمَا أَذْكُرُهُ سَمِيعًا, and thus their sons, all of them, be attentive then to what I pronounce. So when we look at the Matn of Abi Shuja', he had 11. We said a son, a son's son, however low, a father, a father's father, however high, a full brother, that's 5, a consanguine brother, meaning from the father's side, a full brother's son, a son of a consanguine brother, a paternal uncle's son, and then if you manumitted. So those should be the same here. So line 76 is a father, the grandfather, however high up, and then the son, and then the son's son, however low, the brother, the brother's son, the uncles, and the one who manumitted his slave. And then line 78, وَهَكَذَا بَنُوهُمْ جَمِيعًا فَكُنْ لِمَا أَذْكُرُهُ سَمِيعًا, and thus their sons, that's where the other two come in, be attentive to what I pronounce. Okay, so it's the same list as we did before. And the reason I'm trying to go back and forth is I just want to show you that it's the same structure. It's nothing really new except some of the new things that I'm giving by way of commentary. Okay, now these are considered al-asib binafsihi. They in and of themselves are universal heirs. There will come later al-asibu bighayrihi, who was an universal male inheritor because of another circumstance. But these are the ones in and of themselves. So the 10 that we just listed, plus the one who manumitted the slave. So actually maybe, because I'm running out of time, maybe when I begin the next clip it might be better just for me to restate them and rename them, so we can see that they're the same as what we took before. So I'll do that inshallah in the beginning of the next clip. Okay, so in lines 76 to 78, we have the 11 people that will inherit. So I'm just going to reread it from the Matn of Abi Shuja' just so we're on the same page. A son and a son's son, however low, the father and the father's father, however high, a full brother, and then a half brother from the brother's side, a full brother's son, a son of a consanguine brother, a paternal uncle, and then a paternal uncle's son, and then the one who freed the slave. These are called the universal inheritors, and they will take all what is left. And this comes from the Quran in Surah An-Nisa 176. وَهُوَ يَرِثُهَا إِن لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهَا وَلَدٍ. The brother will take from the sister if she doesn't have children. And also from 55, Nisa 11, it's footnote 55, Nisa in my book, Nisa 11, وَوَرِثُهُ أَبَوَاهُ فَلِأُمِّهِ الثُّلُث. And also the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith that we just mentioned in the previous clip from Bukhari and Muslim. So the understanding of these verses is, the phraseology is that these universal male inheritors, when they exist, they're going to take what's left, and that indicates that they're universal male inheritor. Okay, 79 and 80. وما لذي البعد مع القريب في الإرث من حظ ولا نصيب والأخ والعم لأم وأبي أولى من المدل بشطر النسب. So line 79, and there is not وما لذي البعد مع القريب, and there is not to the distance with the near kinsman في الإرث من حظ ولا نصيب, any share or portion in the inheritance. وَالْأَخُ وَالْعَمُّ لِأُمٍّ وَأَبِي, and the brother and the uncle by the mother and father, أَوْلَى مِنَ الْمُدْلِ بِشَطْرِ النَّسَبِ, are preferred to those descended by half-blood. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. These two lines are going to speak about closeness and nearness to the deceased, which is, I said, one of the pillars of how the inheritance law for us works. So, the son blocks the son's son. The father blocks the grandfather because of nearness. For example, the brother blocks the brother's son. The uncle, the uncle blocks the uncle's son. And all of this is by ijma'. Now, if they are of equal rank, equal relationship, like brothers, they're all brothers, then the next layer is the full brother versus the half brother. That's what he meant by shatr al-nasabi. Those are the full, the sibling or the person who comes from the same mother and father are closer than the half sibling. A shatr is half in Arabic. Like taharatu shatr al-iman, the hadith, cleanliness, purification is half of faith. So yeah, as I said, somebody that comes from a full parent, someone who's related by the same father and mother is going to be closer and stronger from the inheritance point of view than someone who comes from either one of them. Okay, and then in the commentary he gives a nice little kind of restructuring of some of these concepts that I think is useful. What are the types of relationship that produce the universal heir status? There are 6 of them. Number 1 is children, or sons, sorry. Number 2 is fathers. Number 3 are grandfathers. Then number 4 are brothers. Number 5 are uncles. And number 6 is the relationship based on manumission. So the brothers means the brothers and their sons. The uncles mean the uncles and their sons. So this is just like it's not a mnemonic, but it is a learning tool that sometimes is beneficial. Okay, lines 81 to 83. والابن والأخ مع الإناث يعصبانهن في الميراث والأخوات إن تكن بنات فهن معهن معصبات وليس في النساء ترا عصبة إلا التي منت بعتق الرقبة. Okay, 81. والابن والأخ مع الإناث, and the son and the brother with females, يعصبانهن في الميراث, have their heirship over the females in the estate. So this is a blocking. Number 82, line 82. والأخوات إن تكن بنات, and the sisters, if there be daughters, فهن معهن معصبات, take the residue after their portions. وليس في النساء, we're going to get all to all this. وليس في النساء ترا عصبة, and there is not amongst women any universal heiress, إلا التي منت بعتق الرقبة, except her who kindly freed the enslaved neck. Okay, so the previous lines we talked about المعصب لنفسه, that they of themselves are universal heir inheritors. This is al-asaba li-ghayrihi. This is a universal inherited for other scenarios. And there are 4 categories. Al-bint, the daughter. Bint al-ibn, the son's daughter. The full sister, al-ukht al-abawain, wal-ukht al-ab, and the sister from the father. So if we go back to the line 81, and the son and the brother with the females have their heirship over them, meaning the females in the estate. So if you have a son or more, he is going to partially block his sister or more. لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلَ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ. For the male gets double the female. Likewise, a son's son or more will partially block a son's daughter or more. A full brother or more will block a full sister or more, meaning partially, not fully. A father's brother will block a father's daughter, etc. Now, a son, we said, is a son or a grandson, etc. The brother includes the full brother or the brother from the father's side. And then the section of the sisters, lines 82. This is called al-asaba ma'a ghayrihi, the universal inheritanship, if that's a word, with others, a sister or more, whether she be a full sister or from the father's side, with the presence of a daughter or a son's daughter. A daughter or a son's daughter will take half. One second. أن للبنت أو بنت الابن, a daughter or a son's daughter will take half of the share, and then a daughter, and then the other daughters will take 2/3. So in line 82, well, actually I'm over time. Let me pick up line 82 in the next clip. Okay, I want to just go over line, the last line, which was, I think it was 82. Yeah, 82. Let me just read the line again, because I was trying to read the commentary and translate at the same time. وَالْأَخَوَاتُ إِن تَكُنْ بَنَاتُ فَهُنَّ مَعَهُنَّ مُعَصَّبَاتُ. And the sisters, if there be daughters. So, I have a sister, I died, I have a sister, and I have a daughter. That's the scenario he's talking about. فَهُنَّ مَعَهُنَّ مُعَصَّبَاتُ. The sisters together, they will take the universal inheriting share. This is based on that. This is easier just to cite the hadith than to go through the scenario. And this is the hadith that we took before on the authority of, it's in Bukhari on the authority of Ibn Mas'ud. That Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu was asked about a daughter and a son's daughter, the scenario that I just mentioned to you. A sister and a son's daughter. So he says, I will adjudicate the way the Prophet ﷺ adjudicated لِلْبِنْتِ النِّصْفِ. So if I'm the one that died, my daughter will take half. My son's daughter will take 1/3, and my sister will take the rest. So those women all together, the sister will take the rest, meaning that she is a asaba in this scenario. That's what the line of poetry means. And then the last line, وَلَيْسَ فِي النِّسَاءِ تُرَّ عَصَبَةً, there is none amongst the women are universal heirs except who kindly freed the slave's neck. That is clear. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through the rest of the section. I'll do my best. Okay. The hijab or the hujub are two kinds. There is the hujub of niqsan, there is omission, partial omission, hujub hirman, and a complete omission, as we will come to see. So 84 to 86. Wal-jaddu, maybe I'll just read the lines once in Arabic, and then when I go back I can just read it in English to save time. وَالْجَدُّ مَحْجُوبٌ عَنِ الْمِيرَاثِ بِالْأَبِّ مَعَ أَحْوَالِهِ الثَّلَاثِ وتسقط الجدات من كل جهة بالأم فافهمه وقس ما أشبهه وهكذا ابن الابن بالابن فلا تبغي عن الحكم الصحيح معدلا. And the grandfather is precluded from inheriting by the father in all of three cases. The grandmother on each sides are excluded by the mother. Remember this rule and judge similar cases accordingly. And thus the grandson by the son do not then turn aside in deviation from the clear rules. Okay, so the father blocks the grandfather in the three cases, meaning whether the grandfather is going to inherit as a universal inheritor, if he's by himself, or if he's going to inherit a portion, a share, such as if there's a son and a grandfather, or he's going to inherit a portion, a share, and a universal inheritance together. Like if there's a grandfather with a daughter, meaning that the son has died, left a daughter, and then there's grandfather. Those are what it means by the three scenarios. Okay, the grandmothers on both sides are blocked by the mother. That's pretty similar, and so on and so forth, as we would say in English. And then the grandson is blocked by the son. That's clear. 87 to 90. وتسقط بالإخوة البنينان نعم لا وتسقط الإخوة بالبنين وبالأب الأدنى كما روينا أو ببني البنين كيف كانوا سيان فيه الجمع والوحدان ويفضل ابن الأم بالإسقاط بالجد فافهم على الاحتياط. 90 وبالبنات وبنات الابن جمعا ووحدانا فقل لي زدني. And thus the grandson by the son do not then turn, we did that one, 87. And brothers are excluded by sons and by the nearest progenitor, as we are taught, or by sons when there are any single or many are in this respect alike. And the mother's son remains in exclusion by the grandfather, remember this with care, and by the daughters, and the son's daughters, whether they be many or not, so say increase me in knowledge. Okay. So 87. Brothers are excluded by sons. Okay, I think that's pretty clear. If I have a son, the son will exclude the sibling, my siblings. And then a son's son, when there are any single, when they are single or many, likewise in this respect, So the brothers are excluded by the sons. The brothers and sisters are excluded by the son's son. So that's what 87 and 88 are saying. So 87 is, and a brothers, let's say the person here that died has brothers and sisters. Brothers are excluded by the sons and the nearest progenitor, or by the son's sons when there are one grandson or many, likewise in that respect. Okay, and the mother's son remains in exclusion by the grandfather. Remember this with care. So on that, he says in the commentary that the mother's son is omitted in by six people. By the presence of the full son, the full son's son, the father, the grandfather, the daughter, and the son's daughter. So that's another kind of, not a mnemonic, but another kind of device to remember. That's what 90 and 90. That's what 89 and 90 are about. Okay, and then actually I will be able to finish this inshallah. So let's read the last from 91 to the end, 91 to 96. ثم بنات الابن يسقطن متى حاز البنات الثلثين يا فتى إلا إذا عصبهن الذكر من ولد الابن على ما ذكروا ومثلهن الأخوات اللاتي يدلين بالقرب من الجهات إذا أخذن فرضهن وافيا أسقطن أولاد الأب البواكيا وإن يكن أخ لهن حاضرا عصبهن باطنا وظاهرا وليس ابن الأخ بالمعصب من مثله أو فوقه في النسب. So 91, the son's daughter are excluded when the daughters take 2/3, O young man. The son's daughters are excluded when the daughters will take the 2/3, so there's an exclusion there. Except when a male has universal heirship over them of the son's children by what they assert. So in that case, the male would have the universal heirship. I'm going to go a little bit over on this clip, by the way, but I just want to finish because we're right there. And then, similar to them are the sisters who descend in proximity from both sides. That the full sisters, if they take the 2/3, they're going to omit the sisters from the father's side only. Similar to this are the sisters who descend in proximity from both sides, meaning the full sisters. They will take their complete portion, excluding the weeping daughters of the dead father, meaning that the daughters only from the father's side, all they're going to inherit is their tears. It's kind of morbid, but meaning it was to make the poem rhyme. And if they have a brother present, he has universal overship over them in private and in public, again, to rhyme. So the brother partially omits the sister. The brother gets double the share of the sister. And the brother's son is not a universal heir over whoever is equal to or above him in descent. So he does not block the brother's daughter who's in the same category by ijma'. Okay. We'll put a pin in it here. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Okay, alhamdulillah, we finished lecture 10. And we did 3 things in this class. The first thing is that I just went over the lines of poetry that we read in the 1/6 section, which was yesterday's class, lecture 9, just to kind of give you the chunks of how to, maybe you can make little notes of like, okay, these two lines talk about this, these three lines talk about that, etc. And how I, reminded you that this is the same categories that we read in the Matn of Abi Shuja. So if you get stuck on anything, you could just go back. It's just a restatement of that thing with very few exceptions. And then after that, we began the class today talking about the universal inheritors, the ta'asib, and we went through, again, similar to the book of the Matn of Abi Shuja, that there are the same 11 categories. And then we talked about why in the writing of the inheritance law, we talk about the shares first, typically, not always, typically, and then the universal inheritors, because that's the ordering of the hadith. And then we went through the lines of poetry, we went through them, reading who are the universal inheritors. And we said that there are universal inheritors in and of themselves, al-asab binafsihi, and then there's al-asab bighayrihi. There are universal inheritors because of other scenarios, and then there are al-asaba ma'a ghayrihi, and there are universal inheritors with others, which is the situation, the last line of the poet, that section about the sisters and the women in that scenario. And then we talked about the hujub next, the omissions, that there's partial omission and full omission. And then we went through again the line of poetry talking about who omits who in the presence of who. And this was also, I hope, straightforward. And we gave some examples. And then we will move on to similar sections, but then we will start to divert very soon away from what we did in the Matn of Abi Shuja. Just flipping through the pages really quickly, and then we will actually get into the issue of how you calculate, which is something that was not in the Matn of Abi Shuja, so that will be a little bit different, and hopefully we'll do that a little bit slowly together. Anyway, those are the main topics we talked about. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.